Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. My name is Ruchi Valia, and I'm working as an assistant professor of mass communication in CGC Jhandheri, the top leading institution in Punjab. On the behalf of Honorable President Sir, directors, principal ma'am, faculty members, and dear students, I welcome you once again. Today, we are presenting a webinar on responsibilities of print journalists in societal development, presented by Dr. Sanjay Pandey, Bureau Chief, Deccan Herald, Uttar Pradesh and Uttarakhand. Just a little introduction of the distinguished personality with us today. Dr. Sanjay Pandey, Bureau Head, Deccan Herald, UP and UK. A professional English journalist having experience of 27 years in various leading media organizations, his journalistic journey began with the English daily The Pioneer, Lucknow. He later joined India's premier news agency, Press Trust of India, and worked there for 10 years. Since 2008, he has been associated with Deccan Herald, National English Daily, published from Bangalore. He currently heads a bureau in Uttar Pradesh and also looks after Uttarakhand. He is based at Lucknow. He has written news report, analysis, features, commentaries, and op-eds. He has covered legislatures, courts, political parties, scientific workshops, and seminars, besides writing on other topical events. His reports have been carried in The Pioneer, Indian Express, and Deccan Herald, besides news portals. He has also been actively involved with several reputed educational institutions, including the University of Lucknow, as a guest faculty. Apart from teaching students of UG and PG, he has also been a member of Board of Studies. He has also helped in the placement of the students of journalism and media. He holds a doctorate degree in journalism. That's all with the information. And if you have any questions during the presentation, please send it to us. I'll bring them up during the presentation, and we will also have time for questions at the end. Now, with the further ado, we will turn the time over to Dr. Sanjay Pandey, our presenter today. Sir, you may please unmute your microphone and switch on your camera. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you for the nice introduction, Ruchi ma'am. This
Thank
is
you.
nice to hear you so many high words for me. In fact, I'm also a student of journalism right now. We all learn throughout our life. And good morning to all the students. Can you all see me right now? I hope everybody can see me.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You please.
Okay. Then without any further ado, can we move on to our topic today? Okay. Now, our topic, as we all know, is that the role of print journalist in societal development in India. So, students, let me first begin with the saying that journalism is basically, a tool with which we connect to the masses. And in all, if we look at journalism, especially the print journalists, we find that the newspapers today are playing a very crucial role in national development, in integration, social harmony, and so many other fields. Now, be very sure that when we talk about the role of print journalist or media in development, we cannot single out print journalists. The role is equal, is that of the television, the radio, the cyber media also. But yes, there is a special role for the newspapers to play in this field. Now, it is not that the newspapers are not playing their role, they are. But there is a need to do something further. And we can all, we can do something good for the society. As a journalists, you are all going to be, writing for the society, for the people, for the country, on different issues, on social issues, on political, religious, etc., etc. So you have also a very big responsibility on your shoulder. Now, we formally will begin our webinar. I'll present before you a PowerPoint presentation to help you understand the basic, the basic thing that goes into media and how the media plays the role in social development. I'm going to show you a PPT. Just give me a few seconds. Now, can you see the PPT? Yeah. Can you see it now? Ruchi ma'am, are the students seeing it?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, as you see, the topic is the responsibilities of print journalist in societal development. Let us now first try to understand the topic. Print journalists, their responsibilities in social development. Now, as I said in the beginning, that the responsibility for social development lies equally on the shoulders of all the journalists, not only print journalists, equally with the TV journalists, with the cyber journalists, everybody. And not only journalists, on every citizen of this country, every person who's residing in this country. But the journalists have a special role to play. Why? It is because they are the medium through which information is disseminated. Now, one more thing before I proceed further, Ruchi ma'am, should I continue in English only, or can I mix it up with Hindi or English? I don't know the students' background, whether they understand English or Hindi both. Can you please
So,
guide me on
as
that?
per your convenience, like Hindi or English, they can understand both the languages.
Okay, I'll prefer to speak in English because I am more at home in that. So, okay, now I was saying that the responsibility lies equally on the shoulders of every person. Why journalists? Because journalists connect with the people. They are the people who work in the field. They are the people who know the pulse of the nation, what the society wants, what the people expect from the government. As a democracy, you know, Indian democracy, in every democracy, the government of the day is responsible to the people of the country, because democracy is a government of the people, for the people, and by the people. So the ultimate goal of any government is to ensure that the people are benefited, that society progresses in the right direction. That is the responsibility of the government. Now, as a print journalist, since our topic is print journalists only, we will be focusing on that aspect. So, as a print journalist, what we do, what we are expected to do, we are expected to keep a watch to see whether all the sections of the government, whether they are performing their duties in accordance with the constitution of the country. There is a mandate, there is a constitution, there is a rule of law. The government is bound to do certain things, whether they are doing it, in what way they are doing it, whether the people are really getting benefits of the schemes of the government. What are the schemes? How will the people know about the schemes of the government? They will know through the media, the mass media. So there comes the responsibility of the print journalist. Now, to the next slide. Now, here's a very famous quote by a very famous author, Oscar Wilde. By giving us the opinion of the uneducated, journalism keeps us in touch with the ignorance of the country. Now, this is a very famous quote of Oscar Wilde. The journalism, it gives us the opinion of the uneducated. It is said that it is a voice for the voiceless people, those who cannot speak on a platform. Now, a journalist gives those voice a platform. Why a platform is necessary? Because those voices must also be heard by the powers that be. People who are in power they should also listen to the voices which otherwise cannot air their views. So there comes, this is a very important role played by journalism, that it keeps us in touch with the ignorance. Whether the country knows, whether the country is ignorant, all these things are told to the masses by the media only. Next slide. What is journalism? You will be going to study a lot about journalism in your classes, or graduation classes. It is a very powerful tool to connect to the masses. It holds sway over the masses. Journalism has a very tight grasp on the masses. It affects people. You watch television, you listen to radio news, you go through the online media, news at all, articles, you read newspapers. So the newspapers, articles, and reports, they affect the psyche of the masses. They influence their minds. The people are going to, hold opinion. They're going to form opinion on the basis of the reports they study, they read in the newspaper. So their role in development, it cannot be overstated. It contributes greatly to social upliftment, or it can contribute greatly to social upliftment. Next. Now let us know about the key role of journalism. We'll go one by one. First of all, it works as a watchdog, keeps the government vigilant, and makes it more responsive and caring. Watchdog, it ensures that the government performs the responsibilities, it does the work it is expected to do. The moment the government of the day deviates from that path, what is the path? The path is to ensure social development, is to ensure that the people progresses. That is the work of the government. That is the objective of all the schemes. So as a media person, as a journalist, it is our duty to keep a watch on that. Whether they are doing it, if they are not doing it, then what we will do? We will write on that in the newspapers, that the government is not doing its work that is expected of it. And what does it happen? When you write in the newspapers that the government is not doing something that it should do, then the government, you can put the government on its toes. You can warn the government. The government is always wary and afraid of the backlash. The people are there. And keep it in mind that every 5 years, we get a chance to change the government if it does not do its duty. So the media keeps on exposing that the government is not doing this thing, what it is supposed to do, then the government thinks that it will give them adverse publicity. It will become unpopular. And what is the result of that? The result will be that after 5 years, when the elections take place, the people, if they are not happy, they will change the government. The government will simply go. So no government can afford to ignore the wishes of the people. And no government can afford to ignore the media, because the media points out that this is what you are supposed to do and you are not doing it. What is the result of it? All these things, it makes the government more responsive. The government becomes responsive and it becomes caring also, because it knows that if it is not responsive, if it is not caring, the people are going to punish it in the next elections. Second thing is that media is the voice of the voiceless. The people who cannot, give vent to their feelings. You must have seen that the newspapers, they publish different columns, different articles. In those articles, you must have found that there is something called letters to the editor also. It is a column. Now, in that column, the letters to the editor column, what happens is that the people, they write letters to the editor. They, through those letters, they tell the newspaper that this is the problem of their locality, this is the problem of the people. And by doing this, they bring all those issues to the light of the authorities, to the ministers who read the newspapers, their assistants, their staff who read the newspapers. They get to know about the problems and they try to resolve those issues. So it is also voice of the voiceless. Next, it preserves and promotes culture also. This is a very important function of media. You know, no country can progress unless it is able to preserve its culture, our tradition. They are very dear to us. Your tradition, the tradition of your family, the tradition of your society, these are very important things in the development of a human being. So the media, it tries to preserve and also promotes culture. By doing so, it kind of bring in a kind of cultural harmony, a kind of cultural unity. Preservation of culture is a very important role of the media. Next is the media works towards attaining social harmony. Social harmony is very important in the Indian perspective. Why? Because India is a country which is full of diversity. We are home to 1.35 billion people who hail from different backgrounds, whose characteristics are different. We have hundreds of cultures. We have, you know, we have a lot of traditions, different traditions. Religious differences are there. We have different languages, but we are one country. So social harmony is important for social development, because development can take place only if there is social peace, social amity. So the media, it tries to bring social harmony through its writings. It promotes oneness in the society. We may have different languages, we may have different cultures, we may have different traditions, but at the end of the day, we all are Indians. So that kind of feeling is brought to the minds of the people by the media, by the journalists. And newspapers, play a very important role. If you remember, and if you read history, you'll find that the history of newspapers in India, it's a very glorious past. During freedom struggle, the newspaper played a very important role. They kept the flame of independence afire in the minds and hearts of the people. The feeling of Indianness, it was kept aflame by the media, by the newspapers against the repressive British regime. So that way, the media tried to bring all the sections of society together, and we fought like a nation, and we ultimately attained our goal, that is freedom. So these are the key role of journalism. Next, to take it further, it promotes national integration and helps preserve national identity. National integration, again, in the Indian context, national integration is a key factor. If you look at India, the north, east, west, and south, you find that the country has faced several problems in the past. We have fought on the issue of language. We have had wars, battles on the issue of religion. Yet, we need national integration. And media is doing a very good role in promoting national integration. The nation needs to come together as one unit. It must integrate, and integrity of the country is very important. Also, it helps preserve national identity. We have an identity. When you go out of the country, if you visit US, if you visit UK, if you go to any foreign country, if you see a person You say, oh, he's an Indian. This is the national identity. You don't say that he's from Punjab, he's from Uttar Pradesh, he's from Uttarakhand. No, he's from India. So there comes the issue of national identity. So it is the media that projects, that highlights and preserves national identity. We are Indian. In fact, the role of media in development is so important that today we study development journalism as a separate subject. You will be surprised to know that there are universities in the country which offer postgraduate degrees in development communication. So development communication is the development journalism is a part of development communication only. So development journalism is now a separate topic, a separate subject. Books have been written on development journalism. Now this journalism, which is termed development journalism, it focuses on, it stresses on the developmental aspect of journalism. How journalism can help in the development of the country. That is the important role of journalism. Next. Now let us move on to a similar and very connected topic, basic ethics of journalism. Now, before that, let us understand what is ethics. Now, ethics are to do with morality. It tells us about certain moral standards that we have to follow, that every person has to follow. Every profession has some basic ethics. Now, ethics are different from law. We follow law also. But ethics are different in the sense that if you don't follow law, you will be punished by a court. You may be sent to jail. If you violate ethics, you may not be punished by law. But following the ethics is equally important, just like law. Because if you don't follow the ethics, you lose the values. And values are very important. They are more important for a human being. If you don't follow some principles in life, what is life there is for you? Life has got no meaning if you don't have ethics. So journalism ethics, journalistic ethics are very important. Now, what are those? Let us see. It has to adhere to a code of conduct. How the media is going to conduct itself. Now, it means that you follow certain principles when you do anything. If you're going to write a report, you plan your policies. What are you going to do? What are your ideals? Whenever you publish a newspaper, I don't know, many of you may in future publish newspapers or set up television channels. But before you do that, you will have to decide what is going to be your ideology, what you plan to do by publishing a newspaper. You just don't plan a newspaper simply because you want to make money. Making money and publishing newspapers, it may be connected, but then newspapers or media is not only for minting money. It has got some other aspects also. Unlike other business, fields, like if you manufacture something, you set up an industry. Now that the object of setting up an industry for producing a good may be different. You are selling a product there. Now media is not a product. It is for the benefit of the people. It is for the welfare of the people. So you have to set up first a broad objective. What do you plan to do by publishing a newspaper? That is the code of conduct. Then impartiality. As a journalist, as a media person, you cannot be partial. For you, every person is equal. You cannot treat some people as more equals. So impartiality is a very important thing. You will look at things in an impartial way. You cannot look at things with a jaundiced eye. When you look with jaundiced eye, jaundice is a disease. It is, the color of the body turns yellow when somebody suffers from jaundice. So what happens when you have jaundice, that you see things in the yellow color. It is, you cannot do it in journalism. You must be impartial. You must look at, without any partiality. The next thing is objectivity. Now, what is being objectivity? Objectivity means that you only take into account the facts, nothing else but the facts. A reporter, a journalist should be concerned only with the facts. Remember, facts are sacred. You cannot tamper with that. So when you are objective, then you are only including the facts in the story. You're not doing anything else. You're not mixing it up. You're only presenting the facts before the readers. And let the reader form his own opinion, his own views. As a journalist, I'm not concerned with that. I'm not concerned how you take the story, how you take my story, because I have put in facts in the story. So I am putting facts before you. You are only to look at the facts and then form your opinion. You are free to that. Do that. I have no objection to that. The next thing is balancing the story. Balancing means that you put in all sides of the story. I'm giving you an example. Now, suppose a crime has been committed. Somebody has accused, Mr. X has accused Mr. Y of committing a crime. You as a journalist, as a reporter, are writing the story for your newspaper. So you are writing that Mr. X has alleged that Mr. Y has done this thing. You can do that because you are quoting Mr. X. I'm not saying anything. I am saying only what Mr. X is saying. But what I should do, I should also speak to Mr. Y. What Mr. Y has to say on this, whether he is accepting that allegation, whether he is rejecting the allegation, whether he is making some counter allegation. So what I am doing basically is I'm taking the version of Mr. X and Mr. Y both. By doing this, what I'm doing, I'm balancing the story. The story is balanced. And if you look at the previous points, impartiality. Now, balance has to do with impartiality because I'm not partial. Even if Mr. X is my relative, I'm not partial towards him. I will still speak to Mr. Y and include his point of view. So I'm balancing the story. The next point is unbiased. I cannot be biased. Biased means I cannot be prejudiced. I have no personal bias either in your favor or against you or in his wife's favor or against him. No. Again, I am impartial. So I am presenting an unbiased view of the incident. What has happened? I am producing it as it has happened. The next point is public interest. This public interest is very important. Now, public interest is what? It is the interest of the people at large. There can be private interest of some people, a group maybe, a few persons maybe, and there is a public interest. Suppose somebody has set up a plant in a rural area or in a small township near a river, and the industry, the waste is now flowing into the river, and the river has become polluted. Now, as a reporter, as a journalist, if you are writing a story on that, you must keep public interest in mind, that the river, which is a source of water for lakhs of people, for the villagers there, they are not being able to use that water because it has become polluted. Why? Because of the flow of industrial waste into it. The private interest of the industrialists, it will say that, don't write the story. If you don't write it, it will be in private interest. If you write it, it will be in public interest. So as a journalist, you must cater to the public interest, not to the private interest. That is very important. The another thing is decency. Decency means that you must maintain a quorum of certain decency, that your stories should not be indecent. It must not be vulgar. You cannot present vulgar things. You cannot vulgarize things. You cannot be sexist. That is a very important point. These are the ethics of journalism, basic ethics of journalism. Next slide. Now a question comes to the mind. Why be a journalist? You can do all these things. You can be if you are a good citizen, you can contribute to the development of the society, of the country. But why be a journalist? The desire to write. If you write for the masses, then your writing will have some influence, some effect on the people. See, just consider, if you are a reporter, a journalist in a newspaper, and there is a bridge which is in a very bad condition, or there is no bridge at all on a river, on a small river, and people have to use boat to go across. The children go to the schools across the river every day, and during monsoons, when there is flood in the river, they cannot go to the schools. And if you write in the newspapers, and because of your writing, the ministers, the government gets to know, and a bridge is constructed there on the bridge, it will give you a lot of satisfaction, because your writing has been able to help the people of that area. Now the bridge is constructed. So what did you do is that you presented before the government the demand of the people, the desire of the people. So this increases the desire to write, that I'm writing for the masses. Desire to influence for the good. Influence is very important. You're writing because the primary reason for your writing is to ensure that it makes some good influence. It makes some impact. But that impact must be for good, not for bad. So if you're writing anything which is not good, then it is useless. Then you please don't write. So if at all you want to write, you write to influence for the good. Something good must happen after you write. The desire for knowledge. A journalist, he or she mingles with people. He goes and live with them. So he knows about them. He wants to know more about them. Election times comes, or in any other, whenever anything happens, they move among the people. They try to find out what is happening in the society, what is happening in the village, what is happening in this, what is happening in the city. So he also wants to know, and a journalist, journalism. That is why it is said that journalism cannot be contained in a book, because it is concerned with the people. So you should know the people. The desire for knowledge it should also be there. Always. A journalist must always aspire to know more and more and more. And then an interest in life. This is again very important. Life, it is very important that you have an interest. How can you better the life? What can you do to make the lives of people better? So these are the things that, that induces, that encourages somebody to become a journalist. Next. You, as you have seen, that you have the power to influence people. Sometimes you may feel that you are very powerful. You can change things. But with the power comes responsibilities also. A very famous political scientist had said once that power corrupts. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. But a journalist must never feel that he has become powerful. No. Your power comes from the people. So you must be very polite. You cannot afford to misuse that power. You cannot afford to be rude to the people, because people are your source. They are the people for whom you are writing. So you must be polite to them. You must be honest. You should have a suspicious mind. When I say suspicious mind, I don't mean that you should suspect everybody. No, it means you should be skeptical. Skeptical means that whenever somebody tells you something, if Mr. X says that Mr. Y has done something wrong, then you shouldn't immediately believe him. Be skeptical. Check it, cross-check it from other sources, whether Mr. X is saying whatever he is saying is true. So this is if you have a suspicious mind, then it will help you in checking facts and present the truth before the people. Love of the language. Mind it, if you want to be a writer, if you want to be a print journalist, a TV journalist speaks on air, but a print journalist, he has to write. So what you're doing is that you are giving shape to the feelings of the people in black and white. So you must know the language, whether you have the things to present it. That is why it is said that journalism is only about two things: observation and expression. Whether you have the power to observe, whether you can see things which others cannot. That is, if you can read between the lines, and whether you can express what you have seen. You must see the reports of cricket matches in the newspaper columns. There are 1,000-word stories. If you read those stories, so if you are not present in the field, you have not seen, you have not watched the India-Australia one-day match or India-Pakistan one-day match, you were not there in Dubai or Sharjah when the match was played, not there in the stadium. But if you read the report, you will feel as if you were there. How Rohit Sharma played his shots. So you feel like visualizing how Rohit Sharma must have pulled that ball to the square leg for a 6. So that is the power of language. You should write for the people. People should understand what you are writing. You should have the vocabulary, you should have the language, so that people take interest in that. Then alert and ordered. A journalist must always be on the alert, because stories are scattered around you. If you're out on the streets, you can get stories. If you can see a 10-year-old boy, a 10-year-old child serving tea to the people on a roadside dhaba. If you have the knack for stories, you will pick the story. Here's the case of child labor. You can speak to that boy. Why don't you go to school? Where do you come from? So you are always on the alert. Alert means you are always on the lookout for stories. And ordered means that you must be organized. You cannot afford to be disorderly. That is the meaning of being ordered. Next is, now, all said and done, what is the current situation? I have no hesitation in saying that journalism has deviated from its path in the modern times. There have been allegations that it is not performing its duties. Journalists, they have also, journalism has just like become any other product. What we find today, the newspapers, they try to increase their circulation. They try to get more and more advertisements. You must have seen some days back on the occasion of Diwali, one newspaper, I'm not going to name that newspaper, one particular newspaper, a very famous brand, it came out with 88-page newspaper on the day of Diwali. 88 pages. And out of that 88 pages, 76 pages were advertisement. Only 12 pages contained news and other articles. So the focus of today's newspapers is more on increasing the circulation, getting the advertisement, and they are trying to sensationalize the issues. There is less focus on social issues, more focus on politics, more focus on crime. So these are, and then there is a menace of paid news. The paid news is a very new phenomenon in the newspapers, where the newspapers take money from the people to publish news about them. If I want to get something published in the columns of the newspaper, positive things, that I'm a great person, I've done this thing good for the society, I do this, I pay some money to the newspapers, and the newspapers put out a story praising me. So all these things, it has affected the credibility of the print media. Then trivial issues, smaller issues, some stories, they highlight some stories, they play down some stories, they sensationalize, half-truths are there. All these things, we can find in today's print media, this is unfortunate. This should not happen. Now, I think, Ruchi ma'am, I have come to the end of my discussion, and I will now welcome questions from the students.
Thank you so much, sir, for such a number of good information and for motivating our students. Here we have some questions from the students, and I have received a number of questions, sir. So there is a student with us named as Akash Dhiman. He's a student of BAJMC first semester.
Okay.
And his question is, what will be the future of print journalism in India?
See, what the name say? Akash?
Akash Dhiman.
Okay. Akash, first of all, congratulations for joining this BAJMC course. I wish you a very bright future in life. You'll be a good journalist. You asked a very good question. Let me answer it in this way. Print media is facing a very stiff competition from television media. No doubt about that. But keep it in mind, newspapers are going to be relevant in this country in the days to come. Those who are writing the obituary of newspapers, they are wrong. Newspapers, printed words, they carry more weight. They last long. They linger longer in your memory. Secondly, a man says something in the morning, he can change in the evening. If you see newspaper, the television news these days, they say one thing in the morning, another thing in the afternoon, and another thing in the evening. With newspapers, these things don't happen. Once the words are printed, then you have the newspapers in your hand, so they carry more weight. That is why more checking is required in newspapers, because you cannot take back those words. So the future of print journalism in India is going to be bright, my dear. Be a print journalist. One more thing for you, Akash, is that a majority of television journalists, they have come only from newspapers. 90% journalists who are working today in television journalism, they are from the print media only. And television channels, they prefer reporters from the print media because they know that they have the language, they know the style, they are more responsible. Let me say, they are more responsible. So that is why they are preferred. So, and as Lord Bacon says, writing makes a man perfect. So if you write well, you'll be perfect and you will always be welcome in the television media.
Thank you so much, sir, for the answer. And this answer is going to motivate most of the students, right, to write well, because here in the first year, they have that subject of print media journalism. Sir,
Okay.
we have the second question of Tina Malik. She's a student of BAJMC. The question is it true that print media is facing problems due to digital platforms?
Your question is, your assertion is correct to a certain extent. It is facing digital problems from the digital platform.
Yes.
But you see, if I ask you another question, a counter question, on a digital platform, online media, if you publish and if you start a news portal, you will write stories there also. You're writing stories, isn't it?
Yes.
So you are a print journalist in effect. The only difference is that your words are not getting printed on paper. That is the only difference. And all the newspapers today, they have digital edition. So to counter that competition, the newspapers have now gone digital. So every newspaper where I work, Deccan Herald, we have a very thriving site. Whatever happens, within a minute or within a few seconds, you'll find that on our digital platform. We are the people, we are also working, it is not that the newspapers have not changed. They have changed. Now they have also gone digital. They have adopted the new technology to counter that digital platform only. But the competition from the purely digital platform will not affect newspapers much, again, because the newspapers can give you stories of different variety, which is not possible on any other platform. And you can always, carry them wherever you want. So these are the issues that if you spend 5 rupees and you can get a go down of news, that we say. And this is not possible on any other digital platform. So the competition is there, problems will be there, but the newspapers, they are adapting to the new technology. They are going digital, and they have been able to successfully thwart this challenge from the online platforms.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thanks for the answer. Even we are giving exercise to the students to write headlines, 5 headlines of the day. So what they are doing, they are taking headlines from the e-papers only, because due to this pandemic, everybody is facing issue to access printed newspaper with them.
Exactly.
Yes, sir. So here we have the third question. The name of the student is Gursahej. He is such a brilliant student of mine. So the question is, how can we as journalists be vigilant about reporting headlines? Because he wants to be an investigative journalist.
See, let me, the name is what?
Gursahej.
Gursahej.
Yes, sir.
Let me tell you for something, that the task of writing headlines, it lies with the desk person. It is not the job of a reporter to give headlines. So if you are a reporter, you will not have to give headlines. It is very simple, okay? Because a reporter, he goes into the field, he collects information, and he writes a story. He gives a headline, but that headline may or may not be taken by the newspaper on its pages. Why? Because the newspapers has got two sections. One is reporting, one is editing.
Yes, sir.
So the reporting is a field job and editing is a desk job. So a desk person who's called maybe a news editor or an assistant news editor or a sub-editor sometimes to start with. So a sub-editor will go through your story and then he will give a headline.
Yes.
Now, why is it so? Because there is a space crunch in the newspaper and the sub-editor knows how much space he has. So accordingly, he will give a headline. Let me also tell you one thing, since you seem to be very, addicted about headlines. In some newspapers, they keep one or two man, especially for the giving headlines. Indian Express is one newspaper which appoint people only for giving headlines. They have got no other work. And I will finish the answer by giving you an example. How headlines can, alter, how headlines can, alter the content of the story. Just 2 seconds. Some years back, I think some decades back, major trade unions in the country, they had given a call for a strike, that we'll go on a strike. The government tried to persuade them to call off the strike. They refused. So they said that from tomorrow onwards, we are going on a strike. The nation will come to a halt if that happens. The Express headlines next day was, government gets labor pains. Now look at the headline, government gets labor pains. So these are the kind of headlines that it entertains people, it brings a smile on your face. That is the job of the headline. Don't sensationalize, but just bring sharp headlines, crisp headlines that will do the job.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Sir, we have a number of questions with us because your session is so interactive and, again and again, I'm receiving a number of messages from the students. So here is the next question in front of me. The name of the student is Radhika Sidhana. And she is also one of very, she wants to go into media very soon, as well as she is running her own channel and she's a blogger too. And she has very much interest into writing. So the question is, what are the adverse effects of propaganda on print media in today's world?
See, let us first understand what is propaganda.
Yes.
You must understand. Propaganda is a kind of publicity, but propaganda is negative publicity. Propaganda, when you try to harp on something which may not be correct, you try to influence the mind of the people. The famous German philosopher Goebbels had said once that if you repeat a lie 100 times, it becomes truth.
Yes.
So this is the object of the propaganda. You keep on pumping stories after stories. You keep on hitting people with stories to their mind, and you sometimes what happens that they try to to play up with the religious beliefs. That's propaganda. You must have heard that some deities drinking milk. That's propaganda, because suddenly there is a rush to the temples. People, because they are playing on your sentiments. So the propaganda always hurts. Mind it. A propaganda is always done with a vested interest. There cannot be a public interest behind propaganda. So it is different from publicity, though it is a part of public relations these days. But propaganda is a negative thing. It has got negative connotations. Propaganda definitely hurts the credibility of the newspapers. And newspapers, they launch campaign. Often they launch campaign on certain social issues, but at the same time, they must be very wary about that. They must not become propagandist. They must not launch propaganda, because it is going to hurt their credibility in the long run.
Thank you, sir. Sir, we have a number of questions, but we have less time. So this is my last question of the day. So my question is from a student of journalism, Vanshika Soni. She wants to be a news reader. And the question is, do print journalism don't get that much response like other media forms? Do you think so, sir?
Well, I don't think, first of all, because I've always been a print journalist for the last about 27, 25, 28 years. And I've always found that it is equally, the response is equal. It may appear, at least outwardly, that television media is more powerful. It appears. Why? Because visual medium is there. It affects you more. So it may appear to you that it has more effect. It may have also, but if you analyze things very closely, you'll find that the effect of television media lasts for a lesser time. In the longer time, it is the print media that lingers in the minds of the people. So it is not that the response is not there. The response is equally there. The newspapers reach the masses. If you you just go to a village, in Chaupals, one newspaper, it makes round in one entire compartment of a train, from one berth to the last berth. You may be reading the 4th page, somebody else may be reading the 12th page. So it is not that the response will be less in case of print media. The response will be equal, though in some cases, of course, some television channels, they have more wider audience. They may have more effect. That will newspaper. The Times of India the reports carried by Times of India will have equal effect on the masses. It is not that. Reports published in Dainik Jagaran or Punjab Kesari or Tribune, they will have equal effect on the masses. Definitely, the response will be the same.
Thank you, sir. So it looked like we have covered most of the questions, but again, I have received a question, so I'm going to ask you, sir, but we have less time. How can we make our writings more impressive or effective, and what we have to do for the best write-ups?
See, writing, first of all, writing must not be a labored effort. When it is not, you're not writing a novel, mind it. You're not writing a story. You're not a literateur. You are a journalist. So I'm not going to produce, a work of fiction. What I'm writing is true. And as you say, truth is stronger than fiction. So it must come naturally to you. You must have a flair for writing, knack for writing. So what I would suggest that you should read a lot. Read newspapers, read books of, if you want to go into English news writing, you should be listening to to English news on the radio. You should be reading a lot of newspapers, English newspapers, to see how they are writing things. You should be reading a lot of books on social issues, on different issues. A journalist must always be a very good reader. So you increase your vocabulary and simple words which are in vogue, not high-fi sounding. You're not going to be a Shakespeare, mind it. So write in a very simple language, and you will find that you must love your writing, and others must love your writing. If you will love your writing, it will go to the others. They will love your writing. If you are not if you don't get enjoyment by reading your news, your articles, how can you expect others to enjoy the same? There is no fixed formula for that. You improve your vocabulary, add more words to your dictionary, and you will find that, and practice more and more. As Ruchi ma'am says, that she is giving you a lot of, making a lot of practice. Sweat hard. Journalism is a very responsible job, and you must work very hard towards improving your language. That is the only mantra to become a good writer.
Thank you so much, sir. I think we are good for now. And it was indeed an uplifting sessions for the students, sir. Our spirits are stirred up, and I am certain that all students are highly motivated and highly encouraged too. On behalf of our Honorable President, Sir, Sardar Rashpal Singh Dhaliwal, our Director, Ma'am, Dr. Jaskiran Kaur, HOD, and all the faculty members, and on the behalf of all the students, sir, I take the opportunity and I thank you, sir, and for encouraging our students and motivating our students for the inspiring words, sir. Thank you so much.
All the best to the students of college. All the best.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you so much.
And thanks all the students and teachers. Thank you so much for this session, sir.
Thank you.